Hello and welcome to a brief demonstration of using Inaport to import information from an Excel spreadsheet into Salesforce. We're going to go into the Account and Contact area in Salesforce. What you can see on the screen is the Inaport profile editor, which enables us to create the package of instructions that says connect to this source, do this set of transformations and write it to this target. The first tab is concerned with specifying what our data source is and what our data target is. In this case, the source is an Excel spreadsheet, the target is Salesforce. The second tab lets us specify what data we want out of that data source. We can click the drop down to select a table, or we can write a simple SQL select statement. Once we've done one of those things, we can click Update Preview, and Inaport shows us the first 5 records from that data source. We can go to the Preview control and say we'd like to see the first 10 or 15 records from the data source, and click Update Preview and scroll down. You can see we're getting more records from that data. Inaport also has the ability to specify filter expressions that allow us to exclude records from the data source. In this particular case, we're saying if the company field contains Bolton, then we're going to exclude the record, and if we scroll down here we can see that record 15 has been filtered because of filter rule number 1. I can go to the Source Records tab, which shows me the raw incoming data, and I can see that record 15, the company field, does indeed contain Bolton, so that record has been excluded. Tab 3 allows us to make changes to our incoming data. For example, you can see here we have a full name field. In Salesforce we want a first name and a last name, so we're adding a new field called first name and a field called last name, and we're populating those using the Inaport expression editor. The expression editor shows us the first record from the preview pane on the left-hand side, and on the right-hand side it shows us all of the specialized functions that we have available in Inaport for managing data. The functions are sorted into categories to make them a little bit easier to find. If I expand a category, it shows me the functions available in that category and gives me a one-line description of what each one does for me. If I click on a function, down here it shows me the parameters for that function, whether they're required or not, what data type they are, and a brief description of what the function does for me. And if I double click on the function, it inserts it up in the expression bar up here. I know I want to operate on the name field, so I double click that, Inaport puts in the name field. Over here it's telling me I need a bracket to balance the brackets in the expression, so I click that in. And I can click Test Expression and see that the expression result is the first name out of the full name field. Click OK, click OK. Now when I click Update Preview, we can see on the Modified Records tab that we now have a first name field and a last name field that contain the first name and last name parsed out of that contact field. We're also doing some other things here. If you have a look in our source data, we have a status field coming in, but that's not in the format that we want it for the status field for the contact in CRM. So we've got a couple of examples of how to transform that. In this one we're looking up an Excel spreadsheet and running a SQL select statement on an Excel spreadsheet to translate the status field to the format that we require. In this one we're using a lookup and a map file that Inaport manages that enables us to use regular expression matching. We're also doing some other things. We're querying Salesforce to get an in-memory cache of the first name and last name from the contact record, and we're also querying to get an in-memory cache of the system users in Salesforce that we're going to use for assigning users. Once we've completed that, the next step is we can go into the Change Data tab, which allows us to do conditional tests on the data. So for example here I'm saying if the status field that we've mapped is uncertain, then I'm going to create a note and write that to a notes field. Another thing we're doing here is looking up on the user cache, looking up a particular user and getting the ID for that user, because we're going to use that to change the ownership of the record once it's been created. This one is doing a round robin lookup on the contacts that we obtained in the previous tab to enable us to allocate the contacts in a round robin fashion. Once we've click Update Preview and scroll across, we can see that on the Modified Records tab, we can see that we have created the assigned user, we've allocated the CRM notes field only on the field that has the status of uncertain, and we're doing a round robin lookup on the contact field. Once we're happy with all of that, we're ready to actually bring some information into Salesforce. On the left-hand side, we have a drop-down that shows us all of the account, contact, and other entities available in Salesforce. We build a tree where we specify all of the entities that we want to go into, and for each entity we say what operation do we want to do on that entity. Create a new record always, update existing, create new, update existing, etc. And because we specify that we want to update existing or create new record, we need to specify some match criteria to say how are we going to identify the correct account. We're using an Inaport expression to normalize the company name, and we're also normalizing the company name coming out of Salesforce. So we're able to fairly accurately identify the correct company for us to either create or update. On the mapping tab, we can specify the source field and where it's mapped to, and we have a mapper dialog box that shows us the complete set of fields in the source record, the complete set of fields in the entity that we want to map to, and we can specify mapping of any field that we want to. So city to the billing city, for example, add selected fields to map. We can show all the fields in the source, we can show the fields that are not mapped or show the fields that are mapped, and we can do the same thing in the target, and we can sort the fields by the field name or the field label. Once we've done that, we can move down to the contact and go through the same sequence of deciding what operation we want to do, what our match criteria are, setting up our mapping, and some advanced functionality that Inaport provides is after the contact has been updated, we're going to do an update on the source Excel spreadsheet to say if this record was inserted, add a field that shows that it was inserted, and you can actually see that in our source data back here. We're saying this first record, we're showing the state it was inserted, and we're showing the Salesforce ID of the record that was inserted, or if it's updated, we're going to set the state to just the primary key. Final tab lets us set up file logging, so we're going to create a log file and put that into this directory here. For convenience, Inaport allows you to specify a #P, #D, #D. These will be replaced with the name of the profile, the current date, and the current time when we have created the profile. We click Save Run, saves the profile away, and pulls up the Run dialog box. Run dialog box shows us the profile name, the source connector, the target connector, and the status of the run. When we click Start, it shows us the current status as it's running, and shows us the total time elapsed for the run, gives us overall statistics for each of the records. That looks good to us, so we have run that import into Salesforce. We can flick across and have a look at the log file that was created by the job, which gives us the overall details about the job, the overall statistics for the run, and then gives us detailed statistics for each entity that we went into, account and contact, telling us how many records were inserted, updated, or deleted. If I click Update Preview now, it's going to requery the Excel spreadsheet, and we can see now that the CRM state field has been modified for the first three records. Records 2 and 3 are now showing as inserted. The final step that we can do is go to the File menu, Print Preview, which brings up a formatted PDF of the profile that we've created, showing us all the information that we've put into that profile. That concludes a very brief demonstration. Thank you very much for your time, and please feel free to contact Inaplex for further information about how Inaport may be used to meet your integration requirements.